It was an ordinary school day in the northern French town of Amiens. Under the stage lights, 15-year-old Emmanuel Macron was performing in the school's drama club, but his eyes weren't on the scene. He was watching a single person in the audience. His French literature teacher, 39-year-old Brigitte, married, mother of 3, and a member of a well-established family. Brigitte was increasingly drawn to this brilliant, eloquent, and strikingly mature young student. Emmanuel was different. While other students avoided books, he devoured them. He was passionate about philosophy, devoted to poetry, and eager to have one-on-one discussions with Brigitte. Unlike other teenagers, he didn't idolize her from afar. He debated her on literature, shared his writing, and one day, in the school garden, boldly confessed, "I'm in love with you. This might be wrong, but it's real." Brigitte froze. As a teacher, as a mother, as a woman embedded in social norms, everything inside her said this was impossible. But Emmanuel's gaze, so calm and determined, didn't belong to a child. His feelings weren't a fleeting crush. They were deliberate, persistent, and dangerously sincere. The Macron family, alarmed by the growing bond, swiftly sent Emmanuel to boarding school in Paris. But the separation only fueled the connection. Emmanuel kept writing letters, long, passionate declarations of loyalty and longing. Months later, Brigitte finally replied, "I haven't forgotten you either." That one sentence ignited a bond that would last years. Rumors spread quickly in Amiens. Brigitte was vilified. Her marriage deteriorated. She was ostracized by friends, strained with family, labeled everything from irresponsible to immoral. But she didn't back down, because Emmanuel wasn't just a passing passion. He was her future. Meanwhile, Emmanuel matured in Paris. He rose through elite academic circles, thrived in finance, and eventually turned to politics. Brigitte remained by his side, not just as a partner, but as a mentor. She coached him before interviews, edited his speeches, helped shape his public voice. But the past hadn't forgotten them. Vincent Leclerc, a former school administrator forced into resignation years earlier due to Brigitte's complaint, resurfaced. Seeking revenge, he gathered letters, photos, and private documents from their early days. One day, a confidential dossier was leaked to the press. France erupted. Brigitte's character was dissected. Macron's rise was reframed through the lens of scandal. Advisors urged him to push Brigitte into the background, but Emmanuel refused. At a public event, he stood beside her and said, "A man who began this journey hand in hand with his wife cannot continue it alone." Despite relentless media attacks, Macron never let go of Brigitte's hand. He won the election. Their entry into the Élysée Palace wasn't a coronation. It was a trial. Brigitte faced isolation, relentless scrutiny, and a nation skeptical of her presence. Headlines mocked her age, her role, even her smile. Yet, in the palace's quietest rooms, she continued crafting speeches, building outreach initiatives, and supporting her husband silently but powerfully. Then one night, a red folder marked "National Security, Authorized Access Only" landed on Macron's desk. Inside were manipulated files, old letters, and forgotten voice recordings from Brigitte's past. Elements within the state were plotting to use her history as leverage against him. Macron had two choices: bury the truth or face it head-on. Brigitte found the folder. Calmly, she said, "If you hide this, you'll be the one who's destroyed." That day, Macron stood before cameras and laid everything bare. The nation trembled, but the people saw honesty not as weakness, but as strength. Today, Emmanuel Macron is considered one of France's most unshakable leaders. But behind his polished speeches, calculated reforms, and political maneuvering lies a deeper story, one not found in policy papers or campaign slogans, but in the quiet resilience of a woman who has walked every step of that journey beside him. Brigitte Macron is not just a wife. She is the woman who bore the weight of a nation's judgment, who stood unyielding in the face of ridicule and scandal, and who loved not behind closed doors, but in the heart of power. From the moment she stepped into the Élysée Palace, she became a target of critics, of gossip, of public curiosity. Her age, her past, her love story, each became a subject for headlines, late-night monologues, and social media frenzy. Yet Brigitte remained composed. She redesigned her role, not as a decorative spouse, but as a silent strategist. Behind the scenes, she helped structure Emmanuel's speeches, advised on public tone, and acted as an emotional anchor in the storm of political life. Despite never holding office, she became one of the most influential figures in French politics, simply by being present, thoughtful, and steady. There were days when she walked the palace halls in silence, overwhelmed by the spotlight and isolation. There were nights when she sat alone, revisiting the early days, the letters, the threats, the sacrifices. She had traded a quiet provincial life for a battlefield of public life, but she never once asked to go back. One particular evening stands out. Following a tense press conference where Macron was grilled about his decisions and their private life was once again questioned, Brigitte found him in his study, exhausted, angry, and unusually unsure. He looked up and asked, "Did I drag you into something you never wanted?" She smiled faintly and replied, "No. You brought me exactly where I was meant to stand." Theirs was not a conventional marriage. It defied tradition, age expectations, and political norms. But what it lacked in convention, it made up for in authenticity. Their bond was forged not in ease, but in resistance. Every trial they faced became a layer of trust, every attack a test of unity. Even their detractors, over time, began to acknowledge the strength of their relationship. Voters, particularly younger generations and women, saw Brigitte as a symbol, not just of resilience, but of love's ability to transcend judgment. And when international dignitaries met the couple, it was often Brigitte's insight and poise that left the lasting impression. Fluent in culture, literature, and diplomacy, she became not just France's First Lady, but its quiet voice of reason. This isn't just a love story. It's the story of a devotion so fierce, even the government kept a file on it. And through all the noise, one truth remained unshaken. In the most guarded palace in France, the boldest act of leadership was love.